With that, you mentioned the Virginia Cavaliers. Let's move to UVA and preview the Wahoos. Now, remember, you guys, the Jimmies and the Joes, put together this list. So if you're thinking, a lot of people are high on Virginia, why on earth are they all the way down here at 15? Well, it's a great question. I'd love to ask you guys, the Jimmies and the Joes, because as I look at it, yes, you are assuming a mountain of things about Tony Elliott and a team that has just annually underachieved under his leadership. Virginia, as a program, has not been good in a very long time. But Trey, as I look at some of the pieces that they bring back, quarterback and Chandler Morris that comes in, I feel like this team has more of an identity than that they've had in years past. And I think that defense is going to be pretty good. You package all of that with a pretty forgiving schedule, and I can certainly get Virginia to a bowl game this year.
Yeah, there's a reason their Vegas over-under is at 6.5 right now. I know the under is getting more of the action, as you can see on the graphic on the screen, but it's kind of put up or shut up time for Tony Elliott in my mind. It feels like this needs to be the year. They've been kind of building to this year. You mentioned Chandler Morris coming in, former TCU and North Texas quarterback. Kind of had some bumps in the road at TCU, especially last season, but his last season there, but I think definitely a guy that could run this Tony Elliott offense and distribute the ball to some weapons. They're retooling the receiving core. They've got Cameron Russ coming down from James Madison, Jamal Edrin from Purdue, who had some nice numbers in a really bad offense up there, and Jaden Thomas coming down from Notre Dame. So guys that they got from one of the best G5 schools and sitting Power 5 starters coming down to lead this receiving core. They really invested in the offensive line as well. They picked up 4 full-time starters on that offensive line from other schools. So they're kind of going all in, and they're kind of rallying around Tony Elliott, at least on the offensive side of the ball. You mentioned the defense, and it's another team that they just have to find another option at pass rush. They have to find a way to get there. They've had just 30 sacks over the last 2 seasons. They upped it last year, but upping it was just to 19. So it's something that they've got to figure out. It's just been a real bugaboo for quite some time. Added some beef up the middle that I'm really interested in. They've got more just big dudes at the defensive tackle position than they have in quite some time. And Cam Robinson and James Jackson, they are the headliners at the linebacker core. They're coming back from last year, and that's a really deep group that I think can kind of be the stars of this defense. I think that if you're looking for something to rely on and kind of set your watch to for Virginia this year, the linebacker core could go 6 or 7 deep and be a unit that they can really hang their hat on.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think I wrote in my notes, I think they could get into the top 50 in rush defense. My concern is on the back end with that secondary. They don't return a single starter from last year. And
might not be a bad thing, though. They get up 268 yards a game.
Nope, stopping the pass was not on their CV last season, so maybe a clean slate is much needed. Now, you did mention on the offensive line 4 new starters that they bring in from the transfer portal. They did lose Monroe Mills to a knee injury in the spring, so he's done for the year. That was a bad loss for them coming over from Louisville. I know there was a lot of high hopes that he was going to plug in and be a nice piece there. The running back core is interesting to me because you've got Jamari Taylor from North Carolina Central who transfers in. He's had almost 2,000 yards in his career there. And then Harrison Whaley, who if you play as Wyoming or if you've played as Wyoming in the last couple of years of college football, you know that he's kind of a thumper at the running back, a bruising kid. He joins, and then they're both joined, I guess, welcomed by Xavier Brown, who's the returner. He had almost 500 yards on the ground last season. So the running game is going to be key. I do hope and lean towards Chandler Morris really amplifying this offense, really giving the Hoos a nice boost offensively. It's his 4th stop in his collegiate career. Remember, he started at Oklahoma, and he's been all over the place since then. TCU, North Texas as well. And North Texas, he had a tremendous year under Eric Morris. Can he replicate that in Tony Elliott's offense? We'll see, but it really has felt like he's grown and matured as a passer, and I think it's at least a very nice platform to build your offense on. Looking at the schedule, Trey, I wrote, can you dream of a 4-1 start if we're going over and trying to get to a bowl game?
Yeah, I mean, it's right there in front of them, and it's a schedule that I think sets up where if you don't hit this over, if you don't win 7 games, I think it's a really big disappointment because that start you're mentioning, it's Coastal Carolina at home, it's at NC State in a non-conference game. They scheduled that home and home as a non-conference affair right after the conference realignment stuff was happening in the ACC. Then you're back home for William and Mary, Stanford, and Florida State in consecutive weeks, and Florida State's kind of one of the biggest wild cards in
Yep.
all of the ACC right now. They'd certainly be more talented top to bottom than Virginia, but that's a game at home that Virginia will have. I'm looking at their schedule from last year, and yeah, they didn't play Florida State last year. So I was going to see if we had a reference point for them last year, but
Unfortunately, didn't get that
they
opportunity.
didn't get the bye win playing Florida State last year, like everybody else in the ACC did, except for Cal, unfortunately.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a dream start to the schedule. You get to kind of build, you get to test yourself week 2 at NC State, but it doesn't count against you in the conference standings. I think that's a nice little wrinkle. And after they play Florida State, they go to Louisville for really their toughest road game of the entire season. So it sets up really nicely. Like I said, the back half is really manageable as well. They host Washington State, road trip to North Carolina, road trip to Cal, but also host Wake Forest and
Mhm.
Virginia Tech in the Commonwealth Cup to close it out. So, I mean, less than 7 feels really disappointing when you look at it back to back. There's not a ton of difficult stretches that wear down on you. It's really going to be put up or shut up time for Tony Elliott, like I said off the top.
Well, and I've tried over the last couple of years. I've tried to breathe life on this show into the UVA program. Last year, I had a thread where I made the case for Virginia going to a bowl game, and I got called crazy, and they got to 5-7.
That
And heck,
close, yeah.
as long as you don't go 1-6 in the back half of your season, you make a bowl game. I mean, my goodness, that Virginia just wet the bed in the second half of the year. We were so close, and they missed some of those well, I guess they took advantage of their opportunities at the beginning of the year and then just were right in games like Louisville, a 4-point loss. Clemson, they were actually kind of in for a little bit of that game. They get blown out by North Carolina. That was a massive misstep. I'm sorry, they beat Pitt and then just got kind of boat raced the rest of the way. So this year, they've certainly got to turn that around. They've got to find a way to take advantage of some of those quote unquote easier wins in the back half of the schedule. And if they do that, I think 7. I've seen some people saying 8 wins. Friend of the program, William Cockrell, Walk On Moose, has them at 9-3 this
Oh,
year, which is certainly a take. And I'm curious to see how that pans out for him. But no matter where you fall on Virginia, to not get to at least 7 wins with this schedule, I think would be perhaps grounds to go in a different direction than Tony Elliott. He has just underachieved so many years with, I think, decent resources. There's no reason that Virginia should be a doormat program in the ACC, and yet he's just taken his sweet time building things and getting the Cavs even to any sort of relevancy. He's had a couple of awesome upsets in his time there, especially when they were down and out and in terrible seasons. But now they've got it all together, and to me, there are no excuses for this season.
I'm right there with you. And we saw it with Brocco Mendenhall, his immediate predecessor, that you can win at UVA. You can have really fun, exciting teams at UVA. They don't have to be a team that you're expecting to just win 3 games in preseason. And it's going to be interesting to see how he handles a season where the expectations are raised. That's always difficult for some guys.